hear that statement? Well, if you hear that statement, well, he was telling them that today they did not come to discuss religion. Because when we come to discuss religion, we'll end up arguing amongst ourselves. So he said, you need to put your religion in the closet. You know, we keep it there so we can discuss real issues. He said, because if your religion hasn't done any more for you than it has already, you need to forget it anyway. Because it hasn't done anything for you. So that's where everybody started to clap and laugh. He walked around singing "We Shall Overcome" in 1964. So you can imagine, that's over 50-something years ago. And we're still doing the same thing. He was telling us then, that time is up. So he was telling me we should stop doing so much singing and start doing some swinging, meaning fighting. So he said Muhammad Ali can sing, but singing didn't make him the world champion. It was swinging. It was swinging that got him to be the heavyweight champion of the world. So he said we should be looking to all the white man and all the other people to help us. We should look to ourselves to help ourselves. Only we can lift ourselves up and help ourselves.
This is what you and I need to get with. And the only way we're going to solve our problem is with a self-help program. Before we can get a self-help program started, we have to have a self-help philosophy. Black nationalism is a self-help philosophy. What's so good? Anything can say. Well, you and I have been sitting long enough, and it's time today for us to start doing some standing and some fighting to make that up.
But I think with that, you know, get ready to lose
in other parts of this earth upon which we live, we find that black, brown, red, yellow people in
African American, not the first, one of the first of African Americans to travel abroad back to Mother Africa to try to build bridges and to make this family know that we are one family and that we had at that time estimated 22 million African Americans in the United States of America, with millions of Africans in the Caribbean and millions of Africans in South America and Canada and other parts of the world. But he specifically made it known that we should not think that our struggle as black people in America was a domestic struggle, but that it was part of an international struggle, part of a worldwide struggle of the black man trying to find his dignity and find his worth throughout the world. Not find his worth, but have his worth appreciated by others throughout the world. So he was able to be one of the first African Americans to ever attend the OAU when it was being formulated, and able to represent the diaspora, or Afro-Americans as we called ourselves then, at the first OAU and the second OAU in 1963 and 1964. And he was more prominently known and featured at the 1964 OAU summit that was held in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. He was also known to have traveled here to Ghana and met with the great Essikado, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, where there was a sizable number of expatriates, or I should say Africans who had returned home and had made an actual attempt to come here to join hands with Essikado, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, to help build that new African nation that would be a beacon light for all Pan-Africanism, for all people who love Africa. Ghana was not only supposed to be a new nation taking over the Gold Coast from colonial and British rule, but Ghana was to be an example of the way that all of Africa was supposed to go. And unfortunately, for better or worse, it may have done that, for worse rather than the better. But in the event, you had plenty of Africans who returned from the Caribbean and from the United States of America who began to reside here in Ghana and helped to build, Ghana, early Ghana, along with the Essikado of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik, was one of those who came in, sat down in council, sat down and strategized, met many great men and great women here in Ghana who were part of that struggle and who were living here. Fortunately, today we also have in our midst Nana Kobina Nketsia V, also whose uncle, Nana Kobina Nketsia IV, was one of the prominent leaders, especially in the area of culture and tradition here in Ghana, that Malcolm X had the opportunity to be able to meet and sit down and reason with, and sit down and to share ideas about how we can move Africa forward. And so today we're going to be sharing briefly some of the thoughts and the memories of Malcolm and how he touched our lives and what he means to us in our lives today, and how he significantly influenced us, what he meant to the generation that he belonged to, and what he means to the generation today, and more importantly, what he means to us in the future. And that's very important. Here in Ghana, we're used to pouring libations, inviting our ancestors to be in our midst, knowing that our ancestors are ever present in our midst, and that there's not a time that they are not with us. It's only a matter of whether we acknowledge them, and we invite them, and we recognize them. And certainly Malcolm is one of those ancestors. And on this day, on his birthday, we recognize him, we salute him, we remember him, and we want to sing his praises. So I'd like to say, and go on record, as a rabbi, a part of the Hebrew Israelite culture and people, the original African Hebrew Israelite people, I want to put that in there with emphasis. I want to say that it was Malcolm X who had one of, I said that to say this, to qualify the strength of the influence of Brother Malcolm X on my own life. I would say that Malcolm X had one of the most profound effects on my own life as a young man, when I was running around in my own ignorance, a black man in America, a young black man in America, trying to find my way, but mostly being influenced by mainstream culture, trying to be cool, trying to be hip, trying to belong and fit into my current generation of what they were doing at that time, learning the latest dances, trying to memorize the latest songs and music, trying to attract the young ladies and get their attention. All of these were the fashionable things that belonged to my generation. But at 17 years old, when I was a freshman at the University of Savannah State, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, written by Halevi. An autobiography of Malcolm X, it was so contagious at the time that when I opened up his pages, I didn't just read the story of Malcolm X. It was written in a way where I read my own story. And I read the story of every African American in America. And I read the story of every African on this planet. It had such a profound effect that he made me think in my freshman year in college, what am I going to do as a black man to help my people? I mean, now that my eyes have been opened, I have no more excuse for ignorance. And I have to make a decision. I have to make a choice. As a matter of fact, I can't choose another class to attend at this university without figuring out how that class and how that learning was going to be relevant to how I was going to serve my people, how I was going to make a difference to how I give my life over to making sure I did something that would make the lives of black people more meaningful. And I couldn't do that without first improving upon myself. So that was a very profound. I went and I got every tape that I could find on Malcolm X. Fortunately at that time, because it had not been that long that he had left us, there were plenty of tapes and albums. At that time we had albums on the scene. So there were plenty of albums that were on the scene that I tried to search every one of them out. Every little book that was written on Malcolm, I tried to search them out. So I can find that information and digest that information. And so I was able to research that out, able to find out exactly all that I could about Malcolm was available. Fortunately for me, having been born in New York and raised in New York, Malcolm, when he was doing most of his work, it was in New York. So there was a buzz in the air. There was a lot of information. A lot of elders who spent a lot of time with Malcolm to share a lot of personal thoughts, so that I can say, without fear of successful contradiction, even my moving to Africa 22 years ago to live, and even preceding that by 7 years, 29 years ago when I made my first trip to Africa, it was inspired by Malcolm's trip to Africa. Inspired by Malcolm's message. He took pictures, he took notes, he kept a diary, and shared everything about his experience about our brothers and sisters being over here, and how we're one family, and how they embraced us over here, and how we should come back home, and how we should never, ever get comfortable in captivity. And no matter what America provided in terms of what seemed to be luxuries, it was not home. And every now and then, our enemies would make sure he reminded us that it was not home. And so it was for that reason that I decided that I want to make it a goal, that I want to leave America one day, and I want to come to Africa. Brother Malcolm talked about that. Marcus Garvey talked about that. We had great leaders that came along that fed us and taught us and nurtured us. And I wanted to be one of those that gave my life to fulfill the vision they placed in our head. So I'm very proud here today to share those words. And I'm going to open the floor up that more of us can share some of those words, starting with our beloved Nana that's in our midst today, and ask that he would also share some words. We're going to allow for some of you to share some words, and we're going to read some quotations and share with Brother Malcolm and celebrate him. He was assassinated at 39 years old. 39 years old, a young man. But yet the work that he did in the time that he's on this earth, you would think that he lived to be 90. Because people live to be 90, people live to be 100, and they're not even to accomplish what he did. 39 years old, he was cut off. Same thing with Martin Luther King Jr. He was cut off at 39 years old. Robert Nesta Marley died at 36 years old. You realize these men did something with the time that they had in their lives, even as young men. Cut off in the flower of his life. But he didn't cheat us one day in his life. Every day of his life, he gave what he had to give to help move us forward as a people, and that's why we should be proud to stand here today to say, I remember Malcolm X, and I am Malcolm X. Thank you.
In the newspapers during Nkrumah's time, and then one day we had Malcolm was gone. It was still quite distant. But then somewhere, I think after his death, I got hold of the autobiography. If there is anything in the world that has opened my consciousness, raised it, made me understand the world that I'm in, giving me a sense of reality and the fact that whatever obstacles that there are, you need to battle along, that your life was meant for something. It was Malcolm's book. You look at his life and you just can't believe it. Sitting in Africa at that time, having all these rosy ideas about the United States of America and so on. Then suddenly this thing lands in front of you. You come to understand slavery. You come to understand the conditioning of the mind. You come to understand manipulation of the people, the whole idea of social conditioning, and so on and so forth. It sort of hits home. And you ask yourself, so what is all this about? It makes you different. Once it gets into your consciousness, you become different from everybody. Because now you know. You have an identity. You know who you are. You know what the struggle is about. And Malcolm's book gives you, I don't know what to say, but it just gives you that feeling that you are somebody. But not just the fact that you're somebody, you're not a follower. There's something, your life has a greater meaning than the way you live. And as Rabbi was speaking down there, was saying, by any means necessary. But there's also this question that comes to you. Anything that you come across, is this necessary? Is this essential? Does this help the cause? So it throws the question back to you in the other way. And probably you rarely see an African chief wearing a Malcolm t-shirt. Wearing a t-shirt altogether, but a Malcolm t-shirt. And I do it with a sense of pride. Somebody brought them to me and it was as if he dropped manna from heaven to me, because wearing this gives me an identity, gives me a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, that your life must have a meaning to the greater society. So even as a chief today, Malcolm inspires me. His death, just as I said that time, it was shocking that Malcolm had been killed, right? We don't know. I then got a very special sense of pride that my predecessor as a chief had an interaction with Malcolm. It helped make it maybe more personal to me. I can remember one of the stories that I was reading in my Angelus book when he came to the press club, and they were dancing and so on. And Malcolm says, they are here entertaining, eating these meats and dancing in honor of him, but what is happening in the States? So you can see somebody whose mind was sharp, always focused on the struggle, how to put his people out there, raise their lives. And there's also the other way to say it. It wasn't just Malcolm trying to raise his people's life, it was Malcolm raising his own life. It's that whole idea of injustice, and you feel that you must fight injustice anywhere else in the world. Now with the diaspora in particular, I think that Malcolm makes you see everybody in the Caribbean, in South America, in England, who wears the same skin as you, as part and parcel of you. That these are brothers, these are sisters who are undergoing an experience what probably we never experienced. But at the same time, too, we share in that experience. So once you get to know, then you see that that experience is yours. So today we read of what? Is it Trayvon? And we share in Trayvon's misery. We share in the parents' misery. When you see people being shot by the police in the States, we sit here and we feel it. They're shooting us. And this is all due to Malcolm. I quite remember that when I went for Obama's inauguration, I was very proud to be there. Then I saw streets, and then we got across Malcolm X's Boulevard in Washington, D.C. I wish I could get out of the car and kiss the ground. And that's the way that I felt when I went to Roxbury for the first time in Boston. I think Roger in Boston. I said, Malcolm walked here. I felt I was on holy ground. You know? So Malcolm is not dead. Ghanaians say Nkrumah never dies, but Malcolm never died. His words live with us. You know, there was something that I was showing Rabbi about an hour ago, saying that that quotation, a man who stands for nothing falls for anything. Now, look at it today. Look at the time he said, what does Africa stand for? What do African governments stand for? What do African intellectuals stand for? Because they stand for nothing, they fall for anything. And everything.
Yes.
And that is part of the mess up that we're in. We haven't stood up for something. I am me. I am an African. What does that mean, being African? It's just not just a statement. An identity comes along with a lot of values. Malcolm exhibited that within this. You could see the period in prison and so on and so forth. You read it and it says, wow. Then you put the knowledge. And you could see that it's not just the knowledge that he kept, but the knowledge was growing. Every day became an experience for him. Everything that came across made him a better human being than he was. This is a life totally dedicated to serving people. And nothing has been more honorable than that. And nothing is more honorable than that. The Christians say Jesus died for this. Well, Malcolm died for us too. So that's another way of looking at it. You know, and probably nothing is greater than lying down or dying for your value system, for your belief system, dying to make the human beings better everywhere. We share in the suffering of people because of Malcolm. He opens your mind to say, look, there's suffering anywhere, everywhere. People are manipulating people. People are oppressing people. Wherever you are, and you stand by the side of the oppressed, then you are standing with Malcolm. Malcolm is right behind you, speaking with you. Go on, brother, right on, brother. That's the way to do it. And it's only in that way that we can make this world a much better place than we found it. We can make Africa. And if Africa doesn't stand up, forget it. The whole world will stand up. Forget about what Putin is doing, what Obama is doing in the States. But if Africa does not stand, the world will stand. And that's Malcolm. That's Brother Malcolm. I call him brother, but he's one person. He's a source of inspiration for a lot of things we do. And I wear Malcolm with pride. I wear Malcolm with humility. I wear Malcolm with a sense of coming from somewhere. And I wear Malcolm because I know I'll go somewhere. That's Brother Malcolm. And I wish him a happy birthday wherever he is. May his spirit fill us all.
Those times were Muhammad's Temple, number 7, Harlem, New York. And Minister Malcolm was larger than life. I didn't know really how big he was. I was so small, maybe 4 years old, 5 years old maybe when he passed, and he was gunned down. But in the mosque, every week, Minister Malcolm kept us, the children, on point. Minister Malcolm gave instruction that we children, we were not allowed to sleep. Minister Malcolm gave instruction as he was speaking, we paid attention. He taught us at that age to pay attention. maybe one of the most important lessons that I have learned, how to pay attention, how to really listen. So Minister Malcolm, he was somebody. Mr. Malcolm was somebody that had a strong impact on my life. And it really wasn't until he was taken from me and I got older and I looked back that I really realized the importance of it. Because perhaps being close to him, I took him more for granted. But he had a profound effect on my family, especially my father being very close to him. He gave instruction and lessons and teachings to my mother. And he set the climate in that temple number 7, that eventually Mr. Farrakhan came out of, that really put us on the path to being an extraordinary people. So I can never forget Mr. Malcolm. He would stop. He had a way he would be speaking, and he would look out at the audience, and he knew that he was too far ahead of us. And he would say, "Do you understand?" He said, "Yes, Brother Minister." He said, "Do you really understand?" He said, "Yes, sir, Brother Minister. You say you do, but I know you don't." And that was the case. And I think even today, 2015, still a lot of us are trying to catch up to what Malcolm was trying to teach us 50 years ago. So I thank God for Minister Malcolm and feel blessed to have the opportunity to be close.
Thanks. But it's facts. We also know that Malcolm is known as Malcolm X, but also...
You know, when they hear the name Shabazz, and the name is very much alive in Ghana. We have children now, young children who are named Shabazz, and for various reasons. But when they hear the meaning of the God tribe El Shabazz, then they get a connectivity to it, because we have something similar here in Ghana. We have Abiabu, and the name, the family name Abiabu, similar to the God tribe of Shabazz. Malcolm likened the God tribe of Shabazz as the tribe of people that was taken out into the wilderness and was lost but now found. And Abiabu means one that has gone and has now returned. And so there's a connection between this Abiabu and this Shabazz. So when students hear these connections, they're putting these pieces together and making relationships just with their own ideologies. And it's good to see that someone who has done something such as Minister Malcolm is still impregnated in our youths and students and in everybody's consciousness still till this day, just from them being able to make their own associations without having too much information or knowledge of a person. And that shows you that African people, something more than what we can even say or describe or define, still permeates in us. We still carry a great amount of spiritual innate knowing. We just know, and we're connected. When you hear it, Shabazz, and then young students connect to it. And it's real relevant in Ghana that students and young people hear that, and then they just want to question, what's Shabazz? What's the meaning of the name? And are you related to? And I says, we're all related to. We're all Abiabus, and we're all the God tribe of Shabazz.
Hey, give thanks. Give thanks.
I was given this book, autobiography. It opened my eyes, gave me insight into what was really going on out there, and the terror that was being inflicted upon our people. Me, I myself, I went in the same direction. To this day, I'm the same way. His influence on me has made it so that I have to make sure that I protect my people. So the thing that he influenced me to do with my life is go out there and seek the knowledge and the training that I need to be able to do that. So I went to the best institution in the world, the United States military. And that's what Malcolm has influenced me to learn what I can, to do what I can do to protect my people in any facet, any situation. And I did it. I'm just thankful I was able to. Now I'm bringing all the knowledge that I have home here so we get ourselves protected from anything that goes on out there. And that's what I thought about for me. And I thank you, Malcolm, for that. Open my eyes up. So many insecurities that we have back there, we force all over the world. We just need somebody there that's going to watch our backs. That's my place.
At this point, I want to take the time to read a quote that I think is very significant today as it was at the time when Malcolm spoke it. Although we heard some tapes of him speaking on his own, I want to take the time to read a quote from his exact words. And for those who are just being introduced to Brother Malcolm, you see the profound clarity that he was able to analyze our situation, unlike anybody of his generation. You know, he was able to have a very crystal clear analysis on the point and on the spot, without no preparation about what the situation is, the analysis of the situation. So I will read and quote. Everywhere you look, people get their freedom faster than we do. They get more respect and recognition faster than we do. We get promises, but we never get the real thing. And primarily because we have yet to learn the proper tactic or strategy or method to bring freedom into existence. One of the conditions that prevails on this earth right now that we know too little about is our relationship with the freedom struggle of people all over the world. The thing that you and I must have an understanding of is the role that's being played in the world affairs today. Number one, by the continent of Africa. Number two, by the people on that continent. And number three, by those of us related to the people on that continent, but who, by some quirk in our own history, find ourselves today here in the Western Hemisphere. We didn't ask to be brought here. We were brought here forcibly, against our will, and in chains. And at no time since we have been here have they even acted like they wanted us here. At no time have they even tried to pretend that we were brought here to be citizens. The man is after keeping you over here worrying about a cup of coffee, while he's over there in your motherland and taking control over minerals that have so much value that they make the world go around. While you and I are still walking around here, yes, trying to drink coffee with a cracker. You don't understand what's going on in Mississippi if you don't understand what's going on in the Congo. And you can't really be interested in what's going on in Mississippi if you're not interested in what's going on in the Congo. They're both the same. The same interests are at stake. The same sides are drawn up. The same schemes are at work in the Congo that are at work in Mississippi. These people are beginning to see that. The Africans see it. The Latin Americans see it. The Asians see it. So when you hear them talking about freedom, they're not talking about a cup of coffee with a cracker. No, they're talking about getting in a position to feed themselves and clothe themselves and make these other things that when you have them, make life worth living. So this is the way you and I have to understand the world revolution that's taking place right now. Unquote. Malcolm X. So we see 50 years ago, he was trying to get us to see our struggle as one. Whatever's happening here in Ghana is relevant to what's happening in Baltimore. Relevant to what's happening in Ferguson. Whatever's happening in Ferguson is relevant to what's happening in Zimbabwe, what's happening in South Africa. We have to see our struggle as a global struggle of African people. And Malcolm was one of the great ministers that opened up our eyes to understanding global politics. And yet many of us have been put back to sleep. Many of us have gone even into a coma. Some of us are just simply nodding off of what the point is. But the reality remains the same no matter how long we sleep, no matter how long we nap, no matter how long we take a nod. The reality remains the same, that we as African people have not been liberated yet. And we're still fighting for that liberation in isolation of one another and not put our struggle together as one people. And we only do Malcolm's service not by just coming together and reading his quotations, listening to his tapes, gazing at his posters, but that when we engage ourselves in the real struggle of liberation for African people and for human dignity all around this world. Our struggle must be connected in one another, that no matter where we find ourselves suffering as a people, that suffering is my suffering. Wherever we might find ourselves in need, that need is my need. Where we might find ourselves in want, that want is our want. We must connect our struggle as an African people. As long as we remain isolated from each other, we remain weak and not able to defend ourselves collectively as a people. And that's why we find ourselves right now in a 50-year cycle, coming right back around to the same conditions that we fought against 50 years ago. Our great warriors, great men and great women were fighting 50 years ago. You, our young people, have to face again today and have to go back on the battlefield today and fight the struggle that we were fighting before. We should be in the position of being able to build and perfect our societies, to be able to give and provide for us all of our needs to have a comfortable life as human beings. But we've been reduced back down to fighting for the basic dignities of our human value as our value as human beings. And so this one, we must fight and win, so we don't pass the struggle on to another generation. So with that, as I said, I think that we do ourselves well with this tribute. We hope that our voice reaches out to the voices of many who are commemorating our great brother this day and around in many places, many venues, but with the same spirit of commitment. As Malcolm said, we proclaim our right to be treated as human beings. We deserve and we will proclaim our right to achieve that goal, to be treated as human beings, to live in dignity as human beings. And we will pursue that and obtain that by any means necessary.
The joy about Malcolm is the fact that he never compromised himself. He knew who he was and was willing to die as Malcolm. He could have compromised himself being an Uncle Tom, but I'm sure that he would have hated himself. The power, his analysis, his ability to analyze situations, and you read them then and as of now, you listen to his speeches then and you just can't believe that somebody could speak about the Pavlovian experiments and Skinner experiments without saying so. And these were there in his speeches and so on. And that's his power. But the most important thing was that Malcolm knew who he was and never wanted to compromise that. And in his death, he was giving us all life, one way or the other. And in his death, he was telling us that we need to live for something. And without living for something, then your life doesn't have a meaning. Then you die for nothing. So his death has a meaning for all of us. Maybe, some should say, it was good he died at the time, so that we may all live through him.
Yes. There's a time, we say, in the history of every people and age that we're in, that there's also a time for martyrdom. And so we like to believe wholeheartedly that his death had meaning. But the real meaning is in how we treat it in our lives and how we continue to struggle. Aluta continua.
To their curriculum.
Yes.
And study it.
Sure.
Because it's not just about the diaspora. It's about us as Africans. It is about injustice. It's about oppression, At the same time, too, it's about somebody's determination to make the most out of his life when he realizes that, hey, this path is wrong. This is the path to follow. And that's what makes it happen. So it's like being born again into yourself.
Yes. So I think that's a very significant, comment as a contribution to what we can do to advocate that Malcolm X's book does become a part of the curriculum in the school system here. That we say that there's much to learn by every child of African descent, whether on the African continent or in the diaspora, by being able to read and understand the experience of this great black man. And for that matter, I would wish that our institutions would invest more in making available to our students the life stories of our great heroes and sheroes that have come and been sent to us. If we can believe in God at all through the spectacles of other foreign religions, then we should believe also in our own legacy of spirituality, that God sent our ancestors to us. And God sent us through our ancestors, our direct parents. But we have prophets that belong to our race. We have seers that belong to our race. We have teachers that belong to our race. And it should be part of the mandatory code of our own self-dignity that we don't ignore these great leaders and these great teachers and these great prophets that have been sent to us throughout the ages. So we advocate that with Malcolm and many of the other great leaders that have been sent to us. All of our children should be endowed with the knowledge of who they were and why they were sent to us. Since they gave their lives for us, we should at least learn what those lives were about and the principle that they stood for. So we have to advocate that. I want to say that also here in Ghana, I will say that each year, that every other year, that we try to celebrate the PANAFEST Festival and days like Emancipation Day, that they are never celebrated without invoking the words and the quotations of people like Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, like Martin Luther King, the Elijah Muhammad's, the George Padmores, and the Marcus Garveys, and the Harriet Tubmans, and the Sojourner Truths, and the great men and women of African descent in the diaspora and on the continent, Asajib Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, the great African men of antiquity and contemporary age. And so during these times, we know that these institutions have also tried to make sure that they keep alive the legacy. So we should all try to keep alive the legacy of Malcolm X and the legacy of all of our heroes that are worth remembering, and also committing them to the eternal memory of our collective memory of eternity. And this because he's here with me. There's a great work here that was produced just last night. Kobina Nketsia V, who is actually sitting right here next to me today, is the author of this book. And he advocates continually that we must return back to our own center as African people, to appreciate ourselves, put value on ourselves, and it's only from that center and foundation that we can really have development. Development is building upon the essence of who it is that we are and not importing foreign cultures and ideologies. And believe me, Malcolm is well quoted in here, Marcus Garvey is well quoted in here, John Henry Clark is well quoted in here, Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ben, all the ancestors are quoted in here, along with our African scholars. They are re-invoked in this book and in this volume, that we give tribute to them. The experience of Malcolm having met with his uncle when he came here to Ghana is also quoted in here. So again, this is a major contribution to the things we're talking about, how we institutionalize the memory of our ancestors, that we never forget them and they always remain with us.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you. We thank ourselves for having been here today. But off the record, but any of our young brothers have any questions? Anybody have any questions, any statement, any contribution? We're not in church, I'm not talking about money. But any spiritual, intellectual contribution, or question?
To ask why don't they know mathematics?
Yes.
You're supposed to know math, so why don't you know? And this is off record.
Question again.
Why don't you know mathematics?
Well, we know him.
You know him?
You've heard of him, that's all. Hearing of somebody doesn't mean you know him. There is a girl from Cape Verde, and she just came back. And she says, the young ones don't even know America Cabral. And this is in Cape Verde.
You ever heard that name?
So that means there's something wrong with their education.
Yeah, because
It doesn't raise our consciousness.
in school they don't teach about Malcolm X. When we went to chapel too, they don't talk about it. So coming like the younger generation lose something about our ancestors.
Yes. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You see, this weekend, on Sunday, 2 Palestinian nuns. You know what that word means, canonized? Well, for lack of a good story, he elevated them He elevated them from their normal human status to a status of divinity, that they are now divine. You now have official permission to pray to them and to adore them. This is African traditional systems that the Catholic Church has stolen without giving credit. That's why I call stolen. If they gave credit, I would say they were influenced by, or they borrowed. But because they don't give credit, they denounce African traditional religion and yet use our science. But when we say our ancestors and we pour libations to them, that's pagan, that's evil. But they can choose individuals and say, we can make them divine, we can make them God, we can canonize them, and now they're saints. But that's what we practice. So what he practices is not what his followers practice.
Yeah.
Because he knows there's a source to their religion. And that source is Africa. That's where their religion comes from. But they have been wise enough for their own empowerment, but to our detriment, to tailor it to their own values as European people. They know that it's an African doctrine, but they fixed it up so it can fit white people. And they return it back to us not as it came to them, but as they fixed it up. And they give it back to us in their own form. But I'm only mentioning that not to get off on them. I'm only mentioning the power of ancestors. They chose these two Palestinian women. And it has politics in it. And now these two Palestinian women who lived and walked this earth, they say now they are saints. And now the people of Palestine can have hope. Because they have two saints that they can pray to now as Palestinians. That they have their own people that they can go and take the message to God. Now we see the system they're using. These are our ancestors. And we believe our ancestors also work for us. And also speak for us. And also are with us. So we are doing the right thing and honoring them. And we need to know all of them. Amika Cabral, we should know that name. We should know, you know, Secretary?
Yeah.
Good. Let's name some other names just before we close out.
Boys.
Du Bois, you know Du Bois. You know George Padmore. George Padmore.
Yeah.
You know him. He's buried in Accra. He has a library in Accra. The library is even fading away, but nobody's really going to look at it. He was one of the most intelligent and brilliant Africans in international affairs in the time of his death. He also came to be with Kwame Nkrumah to assist to build Ghana as a strong nation and refuge for African people, no matter where we were in the world. His portrait is out there on the wall out there, George Patmore. Unfortunately, he died young too. He was only 50-something years old. And he died actually in 1959, only 2 years after Ghana got her independence. But he was here for the independence struggle. You know Kwame Ture, known as Stokely Carmichael? You know that name?
Yeah.
The poor lady sounds like Rick to her.
She's not hearing it now.
There's this guy called Eduardo Mondlane.
Right.
And he was there before Samuel Moshe. And when you read his biography, or his autobiography, before he was born, I mean, just like Cabral opened a book, a parcel, which was in the form of a book, and he blew him up. They blew 3 people out that way among the Portuguese sections of the divided Africa. Now, Mondlane talks about a place called Mwenda. And in Mwenda, the Africans went to see the Portuguese government to ask for independence. They were just holding leaves. And the governor says, just go. We don't want you to talk about independence. Just leave. He said, no, tell us something. We want our freedom. The governor blew a whistle. And you know what happened after that? They were waiting for them and they bring the whole place with soldiers. So they just fired into this unarmed crowd. See, these are stories you don't learn. And if you don't know these stories, you never know who you are. They shot almost all of them. 500 people died on the spot. All that you know about the Soweto and what? what do you call it, Mandela's thing. It was worse. And then the Catholic, the capital is now Maputo, but it used to be called the Mozambique's capital before they changed the name to Maputo. The Catholic bishop there wrote a letter to all the Catholic. It was a Catholic country, and it's very wrong for any African to ask for independence.
Why?
Are you asking me? It's there. I mean, don't demand. I mean, they came with guns. It's wrong for Africans to pick up guns and to be violent. Anything to do with independence that is violent, and so on and so forth, is wrong. No, the Portuguese came with guns. The church was imposed on them in a way.
With guns.
And you accept these terms, and today you speak in tongues. Tongues will give you salvation.
See this quotation here today? This is what what Nana just touched on. This is what a flyer that goes with the celebration they're having in Washington, D.C. today on Malcolm's birthday, what we're doing here. Part of what we're doing here is going to be shared with them today. But he says, nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you will take it. In other words, you don't go ask somebody who has you in captivity for your freedom. He won't give it. It's something you have to take yourself. So do you think someone who wanted to leave Africa would have had to have chains on them? Chains are there because we would have never left if we weren't chained and forced into leaving here. Now we are running away from Mother Africa at the risk of our own life, dying in the Mediterranean and everything else, trying to get out of Africa.
So the question is why?
Yes.
That's the question you should keep asking.
That's right.
That's another session, but we should keep it up.
Anyway,
Yes.
I think we did it.
Yes.
And that's to Rabbi, not to me.
Oh, no.
That's to us.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment, or basically a comment
Nay, Rabbi.
on what issues and problems of Africans all over the world, and to come up, like you said, with a critical, after the critical analysis, a keen solution to the issue. First and foremost, one thing that impressed me at that time was that so many of our leaders seem to be stuck in a box in a position of aiming to achieve civil rights. And Malcolm, Minister Malcolm or El-Haj Malik Shabazz came and superseded, this perception that we needed civil rights and opposed to human rights, and was very precise in, detailing the human rights abuses that was taking place, like what we see in Baltimore and Ferguson today, and giving our people a meaningful solution to the issue and the issues that plagued us, by saying that one thing that he wanted to do was to take our issue to the international community and take our issue to the United Nations, which was something that was very profound to me as a young person, seeing some of the video footage, hearing some of the lectures from yourself, Kohain, our teachers and our elders, and those things that thing most set strongly in my mind, the fact that, again, he was precise, like, this is the problem, here's the solution, and let's get at it. And unfortunately, his life was cut short, unfortunately, but I really believe that it was his intent and his aim, and he would have satisfied that mission of taking our cause and the human rights abuses that were being perpetrated on African people to the international courts of the world and before the United Nations. And that would have had a big, big impact and effect on our conditions to today if he had succeeded in doing so. So that was what impressed me a lot about Malcolm again. So thank you.
For having taken the time out. give some thought to this, we need to, have some more gatherings and to choose our own calendar of commemoration of birthdays or cycles or things we have generated discussion. Because obviously we have a big vacuum of people not getting information and not knowing enough about our own history and our own people. So we have to create our own forum. If the school is not doing it, if the church is not doing it, then we need to do it. So we have any corner. We have a statement, we offer each one teach one. If it have to be under a tree, if it have to be in a corner, or wherever we're at together, we should not talk about nonsense. Let's
We'll get at that tomorrow. I still was unfortunate to get the phone. Yes, sir.
That are giving me a sense of reality and the fact that whatever obstacles that there are, you need to battle along. That your life was meant for something. It was Malcolm's book. You look at his life and you just can't believe it. Sitting in Africa at that time, having all these rosy ideas about the United States of America and so on. Then suddenly this lands in front of you. You come to understand slavery. You come to understand the conditioning of the mind. You come to understand manipulation of the people. The whole idea of social conditioning and so on and so forth. It sort of hits home. And you ask yourself, so what is all this about? It makes you different. Once it gets into your consciousness, you become different from everybody. Because now you know. You have an identity. You know who you are. You know what the struggle is about. And Malcolm's book gives you, I don't know what to say, but it just gives you that feeling that you are somebody. But not just the fact that you're somebody, you're not a follower. There's something, your life has a greater meaning than the way you live. And as Rabbi was speaking down there, was saying, by any means necessary. But there's also this question that comes to you. Anything that you come across, is this necessary? Is this essential? Does this help the cause? So it throws the question back to you in the other way. And probably you rarely see an African team wearing a Malcolm t-shirt. Wearing a t-shirt altogether, but a Malcolm t-shirt. And I do it with a sense of pride. Somebody brought them to me and it was as if he dropped manna from heaven to me, because wearing this gives me an identity, gives me a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, that your life must have a meaning to the greater society. So even as a chief today, Malcolm inspires me. His death, just as I said that time, it was shocking that Malcolm had been killed. Right? We don't know. I then got a very special sense of pride that my predecessor as a chief had an interaction with Malcolm. It helped make it more personal to me. I can remember one of the stories that I was reading in my Angelus book when he came to the press club and they were dancing and so on. And Malcolm says, they are here entertaining, eating these meats and dancing in honor of him, but what is happening in the States? So you can see somebody whose mind was sharp, always focused on the struggle, how to put his people out there, raise their lives. And there's also the other way to say it. It wasn't just Malcolm trying to raise his people's life, it was Malcolm raising his own life. It's that whole idea of injustice, and you feel that you must fight injustice anywhere else in the world. Now with the diaspora in particular, I think that Malcolm makes you see everybody in the Caribbean, in South America, in England, who wears the same skin as you, as part and parcel of you. That these are brothers, these are sisters who are undergoing an experience probably we never experienced. But at the same time too, we share in that experience. So once you get to know, then you see that experience is yours. So today we read of what? Is it Trayvon? And we share in Trayvon's misery. We share in the parents' misery. When you see people being shot by the police in the States, we sit here and we feel it. They're shooting us. And this is all due to Malcolm. I quite remember that when I went for Obama's inauguration, I was very proud to be there. Then I saw streets, and then we got across Malcolm X's Boulevard in Washington, D.C. I wish I could get out of the car and kiss the ground. And that's the way that I felt when I went to Rocksport for the first time in Boston. I think Roger in Boston. I said, Malcolm walked here. I felt I was on holy ground. You know? So Malcolm is not dead. Ghanaians say Nkrumah never dies, but Malcolm never died. His words live with us. You know, there was something that I was showing Rabbi about an hour ago, saying that that quotation, a man who stands for nothing falls for anything. Now, look at it today. Look at the time he said, what does Africa stand for? What do African governments stand for? What do African intellectuals stand for? Because they stand for nothing, they fall for anything. And everything.
Yes.
And that is part of the mess up that we're in. We haven't stood up for something. I am me. I'm an African. What does that mean, being African? It's just not just a statement. An identity comes along with a lot of values. Malcolm exhibited that within this. You could see the period in prison and so on and so forth. You read it and says, wow. Wonderful knowledge. And you could see that it's not just the knowledge that he kept, but the knowledge was growing. Every day became an experience for him. Everything that came across made him a better human being than he was. This is a life totally dedicated to serving people. And nothing has been more honorable than that. And nothing is more honorable than that. The Christians say Jesus died for this. Well, Malcolm died for us too. So that's another way of looking at it. You know, and probably nothing is greater than lying down or dying for your value system, for your belief system, dying to make the human beings better everywhere. We share in the suffering of people because of Malcolm. He opens your mind to see, look, there's suffering anywhere, everywhere. People are manipulating people. People are oppressing people. Wherever you are, and you stand by the side of the oppressed, then you are standing with Malcolm. Malcolm is right behind you, speaking with you. Go on, brother, right on, brother. That's the way to do it. And it's only in that way that we can make this world a much better place than we found it. We can make Africa. And if Africa doesn't stand up, forget it. The whole world will stand up. Forget about what Putin is doing, what Obama is doing in the States. But if Africa does not stand, the world won't stand. And that's Malcolm. That's Brother Malcolm. I call him brother, but he's one person. He's a source of inspiration for a lot of things we do. And I wear Malcolm with pride. I wear Malcolm with humility. I wear Malcolm with a sense of coming from somewhere. And I wear Malcolm because I know I'll go somewhere. That's Brother Malcolm. And I wish him a happy birthday wherever he is. May his spirit fill us all.